All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. This is Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti, and this is episode 122. Tonight, my guest is Ryan Miller. We're going to be talking about taking risks and being creative in comic books. For those of you that maybe this is your first ever comic book radio show, usually we feature guest interviews on here, taking deep dives into their career, their creative philosophy. And sometimes we end up talking also about the paranormal and things that are unknown and unexplainable for now. Maybe a bit confusing, mysterious, whatever it may be. We have fun on here. So I hope you guys enjoy the shows. I hope you guys are digging them. If so, make sure to give them a like. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Before we get started, I have one thing I want to mention before I say hello to the chat and before I bring Ryan on. Today is a very fun day. Very fun day. It's an action-packed day. So there's a full moon special that's on the King Cryptid campaign right now for a mini poster set, 11 by 17 posters, 10 of them, $19 plus shipping. But something even cooler. Most of them are gone already. We got King Cryptid figures. The 5-inch figures are gone. The last gray one just sold. Glow in the dark. The glow in the dark was only 4 that were up. They're gone. 15 of the gray 5-inch ones are gone. They're not being made ever again. The 5-inch figures, we're not going to be doing those ever again. 3-inch glow in the dark. 7 of these are up. I think one is still available. These won't be made ever again. These 3-inch glow in the dark ones. And he's in the chat right now. The dude who made them helped me print them. Ronin Dust. These are printed in high quality resin. Came out fantastic. Based on a Nick Hunter 3D sculpt. Nick was the artist, or is the artist, I should say. He was the artist on issue 2, but is the artist on issues 5 and 7. And he did the 3D sculpt for this King Cryptid. Now this 3-inch one will stay in production, but this is the first edition. So if we do sell out of these, there's 21 left. If we sell out, we will continue to go back to print with them. And that's because there's going to be other King Cryptid figures and maybe even other alternate comics character figures too, created in the future, all being based on the 3-inch King Cryptid. So everything will be to scale. So some figures like Granite Beast is 20 feet tall, King Cryptid is 7 feet tall. We're going to then print like a 7-inch Granite Beast. I know you're thinking dirty thoughts out there. Don't do it. We're going to be making a 7-inch Granite Beast figure one day to scale. How cool would that be? So the 3-inch ones will be in production, but those are the first editions. Everything else is not being made ever again. So again, it is on alternatecomics.com/KingCryptid. Really, really fun stuff. And thank you guys for being so enthusiastic about getting them. You can go right to that site and pick them up before they are gone. What Geeks Do Network says, what's up, CBR? Excited for the show. How you doing, buddy? Cole King is here, says, who ordered their King Cryptid figures today? If not, you can get them here, and puts the link right there. Thank you, Cole King. Yan Zhao is here, too. What's up, Yan Zhao? Hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here tonight. Ronin Dust, there he is. Evening, gents and gals. He's the dude who's helping me make this possible. We got a lot more lined up for you. Grape Nuka-Cola. What's up, Grape Nuka-Cola? Hope you're doing good. Levi Skeen is in the house as well. What's up, Levi? Metatron's Cube says, don't miss out on the... Man, you guys are excited about these. I'm glad. They're really fun. Don't miss out on the King Cryptid resin figures. There you go. Kelraiser, how you doing? Thank you for being here tonight. Wayne is in the chat as well. What's up, Wayne? The Introspect M. This is Hale. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I hope so too. Grape Nuka-Cola says, I got a 3. You got a 3-inch fig? Good, good, good. They're kind of like mini statues. They're not posable or anything like that. In the future, we will have different things available. Not posable, but a different pose. You know, a more dynamic type shot. But it's all based on this one. This one it's out of the blue. I didn't even think this would ever be possible, let alone possible for this year. Nick Hunter had really surprised me out of nowhere with it, doing like a 2-inch figure just for the hell of it, and then sent me the file. See the difference between the 2-inch and the 3. And he sent it to me, and I was like, oh my lord, I was amazed. Incredible. Grape Nuka-Cola says, I got a 3-inch today, looking forward to collecting more of them if you make them. Cough, cough, Behemoth. He be up next. That's for sure. Eloise in the chat. What's up, Eloise? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Cole King says, I grabbed a 5-inch. Hope to have one painted. Ooh, very nice, very nice. I got like 4 or 5 or so that were kind of duds. I might put them up as a discount of the 5-inch ones. I'm thinking about it, or I'm thinking about just having some fun with them, seeing what I could do. I'll have to think about it, but they're not up to snuff in terms of selling them to you guys at full price, that's for sure. Old Dirty Fatty, what's up? How's it going? Aloise says, any advice on what paper to use to draw comics? Still trying to figure this out. Go for Smooth Bristol. Smooth Bristol. Mighty Joe says, Malin should do a 12-inch D-Man. There you go. Paul says, Dirty Thoughts. This issue is called Giant-Sized Man Thing. How could that be confused for anything but a comic about an evil compost heap? Exactly. How? The Beam Pad says, like PVC figures. Yeah, like PVC figures, but not as smelly. Not as smelly. These don't actually really smell. They're good. Good. Mighty Joe, what's up? Thank you for being here tonight. Grey Wolf in the chat as well. And Johnny Slaction here too. Hey, Johnny. All right, so without further ado, because there has been much ado, we should bring on, and will bring on, the man of the hour, Mr. One Ryan Miller. What's up, Ryan?
Not too much. Hello, Pete. How are you doing? And thank you again. I know I thanked you in the back room, but thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem. With that extended intro, I should be thanking you for your patience.
No, it was great, and that figure looks great. And that's really cool that you said one of the artists for King Cryptid also does 3D sculpts.
Yeah. Nick Hunter, the artist that's on issue 2, 5, and 7.
Wow, that's versatile. I tried a little bit of 3D stuff when I was in college, and it was enjoyable, but it's not my cup of tea. It's tough.
Yeah, Nick is incredibly talented. I mean, he does animation. He can do. He really downplays his skill level, but he put together like I don't know if it's playable or not. He says it's semi-playable, but he did like a little Game Boy version.
Okay, yes, I saw that. That was really cool too.
He's ridiculous. But yes, he just surprised me with this one day. I had no idea. It arrived in the mail, and I was just blown away. It's incredible.
They look fun to paint.
Oh, yeah. But man, oh man. So what are you working on over there?
Well, this is some artwork from the book that I've been working on, which is a book called Cascadia. It's a sort of sci-fi Neolithic adventure. It's do you want me to give you the elevator pitch here real quick for it?
Yeah, sure.
So this is my first mock-up cover here. I just kind of put something together for the book. It's about it's about this main character right here. His name is Quill. He's a young shepherd's apprentice, sort of reluctant shepherd's apprentice, who is under the auspices of this gruff, grizzled old man named Gador. And he's a kind of a sweet kid, and he doesn't really have too much motivation to be a shepherd, and that kind of shows in his work. But through a series of events in the book, he's thrust into a slightly different path, a path that he actually wanted but didn't think was possible for him. So, and then through Quill, we get to learn more about the world of Cascadia, how it came to be, the different cultures therein, and the different cast of characters that he runs into.
So, what was the motivation for you to come up with this kind of story? Where did this all come out of?
Well, I wanted to get into making comics for a long time. Actually, the past 10 years really is when it started. And I started by, at the very beginning, I started with just trying to work on other friends' books. Um, and and that was okay for a while, but I found myself not too terribly invested. And I felt like there was a story inside me that I wanted to tell, but I didn't know what that was. And I don't know where I got the advice from, but I thought it was fairly good advice, which was to tell a story that you would want to read. And I thought about some of the things that really sparked my interest in comics and stories. And it was not superheroes. It was more like sword and sandal kind of stories. I guess, and in this particular case, it would be sandals and flint, because it's a Neolithic story. And I also, there were a couple of things that I wanted to do. Number one, I wanted it to be a playland for things that I was interested in. And one of the things I'm interested in are Neolithic cultures and really archaic art, and then the other thing would be a sort of vast epic, something that I can sink my teeth into, and like I said, be a playground for my imagination. And that's where the world of Cascadia kind of happened, and it started with the world. The other thing that I found myself interested in were ancient cataclysms and their effect on human culture over time.
Yeah. Talking my language.
I figured, I'm sure you've probably heard of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Okay, so it was right about that time I was really digging deep on ancient flood myths and what Graham Hancock and Carlson and I'm forgetting the other scientist's name, geologist who was on Joe Rogan's show a long time ago. But
You thinking of Robert Schoch?
Yes, Robert Schoch. Yes, and it made me think. Well, what if one of these global cataclysmic events occurred again? And so that's where the world of Cascadia was born from. And from there, I had my setting, and then it was just a matter of building out the world. And the world mostly comes from my understanding of certain aspects that I really enjoy about ancient Greek, like archaic Greek culture, the Mycenaeans, who else? The Etruscans. The Etruscans' artwork is really interesting because it's like this weird blend of Egyptian and Greek, and you could tell. I mean, it's like they've got these red painted figures, and they kind of look profile like an Egyptian, but then there's just a little bit of extra anatomical reality to them that you can definitely tell that Italian peninsular Greek-esque.
Yeah, there's
influence.
a Mediterranean.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mediterranean vibe to it.
I wanted that, and I wanted. I'm not very good at ceramics, but I wanted to draw ceramics, so like there's going to be plenty of that. I started thinking about how these people will have had survived, where they would have survived, and at the time I was living in Seattle, and one of my favorite places, still to this day, my favorite places to visit are the Cascades. And I figured, if there was going to be a group of people who might be able to survive a cataclysm, they might be nested inside the mountains in the valleys of the Cascades. And so the wheels kept turning, and this world was sort of dictated to me. And then in terms of the individual characters, like Quill, I drew.
So
Quill.
wait, this takes place in the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, or at least what is current day Pacific Northwest.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, and hence the name of the book, Cascadia, because it's this it's centered. The heart of the Cascadian culture is within the Cascade Mountains, and so these people survive this cataclysm. The Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. That's the Tartarian Empire was a Eastern, I guess, very like proto-Russian. Am I correct about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the Cascadians, they survive this cataclysm within the heart of the Cascades, and then they when the dust settles, like literally when the dust settles, and an ice age is recedes, and the passes open up, and they're able to travel more. They start to go outward, and they find certain tribes, and they go to battle, and there's like this Cascadian, they call it Cascadian Dark Age, where it was really rough and tumble for like a couple of 100 years, but they eventually wind up building out this culture. In part, the culture was they're constantly rediscovering stuff.
Does this take place in the past or the future?
The future.
Okay, this takes place in the far future.
Far-flung future, like a couple thousand years after this horrific global-wide cataclysm.
Interesting. So yeah, you're really riding the ancient cataclysm kind of thing in terms of these advanced civilizations getting wiped out. So
Right.
it would be our advanced civilization getting wiped out and then turning into what looks like a Stone Age almost.
Exactly. And the thing is that there'll be echoes of our culture and the overall Western global culture within the book. Like there'll be like little tips of the hat to certain pop cultural references.
They find a comic book and they're like, these must have been their gods.
Kind of like that. Well, in a sense, like when the story is dictated to me, and I say dictated to me because I don't really feel like I'm writing it. It's just my brain, I don't know, or the ether, or
yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's one of the scenes that comes to me is for instance, these are a culturally rich people, and they'll have a story that's passed down to them, which is going to be a direct reference to Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and so they'll be in their Stone Age, Neolithic amphitheater, and I envision Quill sitting down. Quill is the main character, the adolescent kid, is sitting down watching Cascadians act out a Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, but it's going to be through the lens of thousands of years of distance retelling, and they'll be they'll be wearing like masks, like the Greeks in their theaters often utilized masks in order to show different characters doing that represent different things. And of course I'm
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
do you have a background in this? Like, did you go to school for history or anything like that? What piqued your interest with all this stuff?
well, I've always been interested in history ever since high school, but I was never like an AP history student or anything like that. I just from my father, I gained a natural proclivity to be interested in history, and then history was one of my favorite subjects. And then even in when I got to college, one of my favorite things were the art history courses, which were the bane of the existence to a lot of my friends and classmates. They really hated those things, but I dug it, man. I love it. I still have my art history books. And it was history has always been a really fun playground for my imagination, because the interpretations of it are are limitless, and we're constantly discovering new stuff every single year. Whether it's new artifacts are being uncovered about cultures that we already know existed, or confirmations are made about cultures we didn't really we only imagined were in existence, and then things like Göbekli Tepe, which completely blew my mind, which were discovered in the 1990s but didn't really get any real prominent publication until much later. Hey, Jimmy.
Well, yeah, if anything, I mean, like all that stuff that kind of changes the narrative up a bit, it really it
It
gets
does.
poo-pooed.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe, especially is one of them, and I subscribe to I'm more Hancockian in what I subscribe to in terms of what happened with that particular culture. The idea, the contemporary explanation of what it is, which is Paleolithic hunter-gatherers having the time and the resources to be able to put that mound of huge, complex architectural, sculptural masterpieces together. I mean, it's just
To quarry it, to carve it, to even set up the engineering.
if you were
In the middle of surviving for your life.
it's not happening.
And nothing's going to be done unless it's easy to do it at that point in time. So if it's impossible to do it, there's no way they're going to end up doing it. It's the equivalent of all of a sudden you see cats and dogs starting to build the same thing.
Right.
And it's
Exactly.
just not. That's very strange. Something has occurred that's odd in the mentality there. Someone over time had to teach them something, or they found something, or whatever. It's really fascinating with a lot of that stuff, and then they're uncovering even more of those sites in the same area.
Exactly.
So-
Like it's the Göbekli Tepe itself. It's only about 10-15% excavated, and the lower you get on this thing, the older the structures and artifacts actually are. And so they're talking about, like, at 10% excavation, we're talking about 14,000 years old, and it's got to be much older than that once we get down to the lower layers, and that's going
yeah.
to completely blow everything out of the water. I mean,
It's
have
the
you ever heard
same
of-
thing with with the Incans talking
Yeah.
about their structures, and that you can see the difference. You can see the megalithic structures, the gigantic stones, and then the smaller stones on top, and even it's all dated in there, and all the texts talk about how they found the base that they built upon. That was
They're not
already
lying.
there.
Exactly, they're not lying to you. I would prefer to trust the Incans than some, I don't know, professor from so and so'sville. It's they're the thing is like, even have you ever heard of Gunung Padang? Gunung
Sounds
Padang.
familiar.
I'm slaying the pronunciation. I apologize, but it's a what they thought was just a really big hill in Indonesia. I think it's Indonesia.
Oh yeah,
Please
they
forgive
think it's like a big giant mound, but it's not. It's a pyramid.
It's actually a pyramid. It's been covered up with silt and dirt and all kinds
There's a
of stuff.
lot of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the and that particular government, once this and it was a volcanologist who had realized exactly what it was and was doing studies on it, and that as soon as the publication started coming out about what was being found there, it was the government in that country that shut down the archaeology. So, yeah, it's really interesting. So and that's why I like history, because history's still happening, and
Yeah.
we're still a part of it.
Well,
And if we're-
it ties into a bit of what the topic of the show is tonight, which is taking risks and getting creative. Because every single thing you do that goes against the narrative is taking a risk. You have to be creative, and being creative inherently means you are taking a risk. You're doing something that you either haven't done before or hasn't been done before. And when you're doing something that either has been said can't be done or hasn't been done yet, especially if it threatens the current dynamic or what's been told to people. You're often met with a lot of pushback, and that's just to put it nicely in some ways. So, what are you doing within this story? You talked about how you're creating something in which you want to read, which means, to me anyway, it means that this is something maybe that you haven't seen out there before. So, what is it that you're doing with this story that you feel like you're pushing the bounds of your creativity?
Well, let's see. Well, I would say that a lot of what I see, and mind you, my book isn't a direct response against, supers and cape stories and stuff like that. It's just that I was I've always been interested in things that were a little bit off the beaten path in terms of comic books, and so I felt like there was this hole, especially right now. I see maybe the idea of non superhero comics that are more adventure based, sword and sorcery. Though this isn't going to have sorcery in it. It does have some swords, but they're Paleolithic swords. Nevertheless, like a story that is more grounded, I think, in a world of superpowers and laser beams and light swords and lots of digital coloring and effects. This book is very grounded, realistic in the sense that like it's our world. It's a real world, a world I want people to be able to feel like they can see and touch and be a part of, but is also alien at the same time. There's no, I don't do any digital colors or anything like that. Everything's traditionally made. Part of that
Well, and
is
then you scan it in. Do you do any like digital retouch or anything like that?
I give myself the leeway. Yeah, like if there are some times when I make a sort of editorial error and I need to move a character slightly to the left, or I need to touch up a spot. There's also some practical things like obviously, what am I trying to say? Panel boxes and lettering is obviously going to be digital, but essentially, where I can, everything is traditionally made. And that's not to say like I sought out. I was like, I'm only going to paint traditional and going to buck the trend of all this digital nonsense. Because I have no problem with digital artwork. I think digital artwork is great. It's just because I'm 40 years old. I came up learning traditional drawing and painting, and I'm more used to it, and I think for me it's more, I know for me it's more exciting for me to dance on that razor's edge with the ink and the brushes, and my, like, if you likened making art to eating, when I get to hit the pictures with the watercolor, that's my dessert. It's just like, oh man, that's when it comes to life. And there's a lot of stuff that happens with the watercolors that when I'm illustrating, and sorry if I'm going off topic, but when I'm illustrating the pages, the way I render the figures and the environments, I leave a lot empty because I actually wind up doing a lot of painting for the drawing, because I want the book to have a very painterly feel.
There's something for me when I'm making art and it's either traditional or digital. I find that the digital is not, even though it's cleaner and it's easier in some respects, it's too precise for me to have fun. And I don't know if that's just me, but I like the happy accidents, to quote Bob Ross. And in traditional art, a lot of the time, like you're talking about watercolor, especially, good grief, are you going to have a lot of happy accidents in watercolor? Yeah. You're kind of at the mercy of the medium sometime. And it just seems like with digital, there isn't really room for that kind of stuff to occur. Like you're not gonna digitally paint something and it's gonna drip a certain way after. Like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool if they could really mimic that. Like you're digitally painting and the thing is getting absorbed through or dripping a certain way on the digital page. But from what I've seen, they don't really do anything like that. It's very exacting, and then there's a definite tendency to constantly become a perfectionist and hit the undo and then go back and forth on it and that sort of thing. Whereas with traditional art, a lot of the times your undo is you got to go over with some white out or white paint or whatever it is,
or
and give it your
redraw the
best
whole
shot,
thing.
or redraw, yeah, the entire thing. But then the upside also is you got some physical stuff to sell, and it obviously always is that's going to be handy. So they have their pros and cons, but it's a personal thing for me too. I prefer digital over, a traditional over digital when it comes to making the art. But I love seeing a lot of very talented people out there creating digital art too, and especially when it comes to coloring and things like that, lettering, it's really helpful.
I
But
don't know. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ed Brubaker. He did a book called Sithra.
oh yeah,
He's a really
you're not Ed
he,
Brubaker, Jason Brubaker.
Jason. That's what I
Ed
meant. Jason
Brubaker's the
Brubaker.
other dude.
Okay, yeah, I got my Brubakers mixed up.
Yeah.
But Jason Brubaker, he did a book called Sithra, and he is particularly good at mimicking the look of traditional hand painted art, and he does it all digital. And if I didn't know better, I was just a Joe Blow on the street and I was flipping through the pages, I would have assumed that he had watercolor paper and he was painting and inking with a bunch of mess, and it's all 100% digital, and it's really beautiful to look at. I can't mimic it. I
Yeah, you got to know what you're doing, like tweaking the opacities, using the different brushes, that kind of thing. I can't stand the brushes though when they do it all for you. Like the
no.
pattern brushes, people are like, "Look, I can make chains, do whatever," and they all
Yeah.
link up, and I'm like, "Man, it
It,
just looks bad though."
yeah, it looks formulaic. It looks like you used a chain pen.
Yeah,
And that's what I don't want it to. That's I think that's what it is with digital, drawing digitally and painting digitally, it gets very mechanical. I've done a couple of coloring jobs with Clip Studio Paint and my tablet, which, rest in peace, my tablet. It's no longer with us, but it, I did okay. But I don't, like, I have to paint. I almost have to mimic the way I paint in real life. I don't utilize like flats or anything. I just go straight into painting. I put a ground color on, and I start painting, and it gets a little sloppy, a little messy. I can go in and clean it up, but still, it's too clean, man. It's too clean. I like making a mess.
yeah, yeah. You gotta go in there and almost like take an extra couple of steps to make it look like it's not digital. It's easy to make it look like it came right out of MS Paint, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the risks you're taking creatively here. Is there anything on this book that you're unsure of in terms of what you're doing, in terms of how you're creating it? Do you think maybe I shouldn't do that? I don't think this is going to resonate with people. You come across any moments like that?
Very much. Whether it's well, actually, one recent example, you actually were helping me out the other day with the Cascadia logo, which we see up there, and I liked it, and you just happened to be talking about that very subject matter, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, it's time to get some information here, and you brought up some really good points that, like, that it's really hard to read. Like, I'm looking at it right now and behind me, and I'm like, oh yeah, it really, like, from a distance, you should be able to read it from a distance. Like, one of my favorite books Invincible has a particularly good logo, and it's easy to read from right across the room. So that was one that I wasn't too sure on, and then the other thing too is I had to decide what kind of audience I was looking for, and I'm still kind of I have an idea. Partly, it's a matter of how mature do I get with the illustrations. Like for instance, my I had originally wanted this to be a an accessible all ages book.
Ooh,
Like you
that's
could give
gonna
it to
be
your 5 year old. You
that's
could
gonna
give
be
it to.
tough for this particular story, I would imagine.
It is, and I realized that's not even the story that I wanted to tell. So it was a battle for me because I was getting to a point in this particular issue, this first book, where I had to decide there's going to be this fight sequence between Gador, the old man. I don't know, the old man here. There's going to be a fight sequence between this old man and a gigantic dire boar, and I had it in my head. I was like, I really want it to look this way, but if I do it that way, I'm not giving this to a 5 year old. I'm not giving it to an 8 year old. This is going to be a teen book. So eventually I had to like say, you know what? All right, this is going to be a teen book because I've got to. I've got to put away this idea of making it accessible to everybody and just be able to like have this boar's brains and eyeballs split apart. So and that was fun too. So it's that's going to be tough. And then I know there are going to be story beats later down the road where I know ahead of time, even right now, that I'm going to have to say goodbye to certain characters. And it's going to be rough, especially with what's going to happen. Because the later books, as we go and progress, the later books are going to get more and more. The stakes get higher, and the danger gets more dangerous. And
Yeah, well, especially for the story, it sounds like you're making a story with a civilization that is trying to figure itself out,
yeah,
and that in and of itself is going to lend itself to some pretty brutal themes.
yeah,
And if you really want to go, I mean, you could go all ages with it in the respect of toning down gore, violence, and whatnot, but you'd have to show a civilization coming about things, I guess, in a different sort of way, or at the very least shying away from certain elements, certain kinds of characters, and probably leaning heavier a bit more towards the fantasy element, which I think you had said, if I remember correctly, I think you had said you're not having like magic or that kind of stuff in the book.
right. It's there's not going to be magic. There in terms of the fantastic, it's much. Oh, thank you very much, Cole King. In terms of the fantastic, what's going to happen is that they will eventually run into pieces of, past technology would be contemporary technology for us. And when I say that, I don't mean like cell phones because those won't be around.
More like
But
mechanical, that kind of a thing.
mechanical metals, things like that, and those things will be cherished and utilized as if they were magical items. Because in a world of flint and wood weapons, a metal sword, for instance, is basically going to be a magical item. And then another thing, one of the things that I actually like about, and this is not a comic book, it's a bunch of novels by, I don't know if you've ever heard of the author Brandon Sanderson. He's a novelist.
I've heard of him. I'm not familiar with any of his work, though. I don't even know why I know that name.
I never heard of him until he had this Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was so darn successful that he
That's why.
made. Yeah, it was. He made something like $8 million on this Kickstarter. It was ridiculous.
Wow, very nice.
Pre-orders for his next upcoming books, and he has a different books, and they're all under this sort of universe he calls the Cosmere. And one of the books is the Mistborn series. Another one is, and of course now I'm trying to think of it, and it's one of my favorites. I'm brain farting, but nevertheless, one of the themes that I've noticed in his books is a sort of progression of time and technology. That the world isn't just a stagnant place where nobody's trying to figure anything out. And I really like, I had already planned to have that aspect, but I saw it happen with Brandon Sanderson's books, and I really want to employ that these Cascadians aren't just laying around like Chip and Flint and you know, doing what have you. I mean, they're really trying to rebuild, because they know that there was the halcyon days when gods flew the sky, when you could use magic to talk from one part of the world to another instantaneously. Like these stories, it's kind of like the Vedas. They talk about all kinds of really fanciful magics and high technologies, and we could see that. We could see if our civilization went to pot, if a solar flare hit or a comet struck us, and we were completely wiped out and only a few of us survived. We would be telling stories about the metal tubes in the air that would take us from one part of the world to another part of the world. that we would be in huge, great vessels that could sail across the vast oceans. And
Oh yeah, well, I mean, even right now we have technology at our disposal that is allowing us to have almost at the speed of thought the
Yeah.
ability to get your idea out across the world to somebody else.
I mean, what we're
So,
doing right now is ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
like I think about when I was like 8 years old, and if I were to tell my 8-year-old self, Ryan, in about 30 years, you're going to be speaking instantaneously on I'd have to describe what the internet is, on the internet, and it's going to be instantaneous, and you're going to be able to broadcast to anybody in the entire world immediately. I would be like, okay, let me pick up this, let me read this comic book, because that seems more realistic.
Yeah, exactly. People in the chat are saying that Brandon Sanderson raised like 42 million.
Oh, it was,
Wow.
wow. Was it 42 million?
I guess so.
I mean, I don't doubt it. His books
That's
are really
incredible.
good. I highly suggest, if you want a good. I really like the Mistborn series, and right now I'm doing.
And yet people don't read, right? We hear that day in and day out. Oh, people don't read anymore. They don't
no.
read. They don't
Yeah,
like
it's-
books.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what people who make bad books say about good books.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of the other reasons why, like, we talk about how poorly comics are doing, and yes, mainstream wise, I guess they're not doing that great. But that's just well, it's the same reason why Captain Marvel isn't doing well. It's not hero fatigue. It's not comic book movie fatigue, and comic books aren't suffering
And
from
it's-
comic book fatigue.
And it's
bad
not
stories.
women hatred.
No.
It's tiring. It's tiring. It's not that at all. There's how in this exact same year do you have a Barbie movie? Now I could care less either way about both.
Right.
But you have a Barbie movie, which is probably the most female-centric pop culture figure you could get, making what, 1 or 2 billion, something like that, worldwide.
Yep.
Biggest
Yep.
movie of the year, basically. And then you're gonna spout out the same nonsense about women, this, women, that, and people hate women, because something tanked that a bunch of women were in.
Yeah, exactly. You know who didn't show up for Captain Marvel? It was women. Women didn't show up for it, just like they don't show up for the WNBA. They don't care about it. They didn't want it to begin with. But it's kind of like Chris Gore was saying, like on his tweet. It was trying to turn boys' properties into girls' properties will be one of the greatest, will be seen as the greatest singular economic failure of the 20th century.
Well,
Something like that.
that's I mean that's the thing is that's relatively been Disney's MO for a long time. They don't have a Disney Princess line; they have a Disney Princess line.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
they focus primarily, very heavily, on selling to girls and women, but mostly to girls.
And rightly
So,
so.
yeah. So when they come in there and people think, oh, these are going to be like their boy line, their male dominated. No, it's not going to happen. They tried that. That's what happened. They gave it 5 years. They looked at what they did, and they said, okay, that's not really working out. Let's
Yep.
let's do it the way we want to do it. And like any other kind of corporate takeover, you come in, you fire everybody pretty much, you get rid of this person, that person, either you put people in there who are already in there and you put like a puppet administration of people you can control, or you put entirely new people if the puppets don't work out or you can't find puppets. So that's just a story as old as time when it comes to how corporate takeovers work. So if anybody's confused about it, if anybody doesn't think it's purposeful, if anyone thinks that this is by accident, I don't know what to tell you. You're not paying attention. This is just how things work. So, and then there's a lot of other things. I'm not going to dive into it in terms of how these companies are operating. People can deep dive all into that if they feel like it. But there's just a lot of things that are occurring within the entertainment dominated world in terms of this corporate stuff where you're not really going to have a certain push towards a certain narrative based on a couple of things that don't want a certain narrative to be pushed, or they want a certain narrative to be pushed in some other direction for other reasons, for more insincere and sinister reasons. And then they prop up people to use them, and then when they fail purposefully, they can point to them, use them as a scapegoat, and then it makes people go, yeah, the bad times happened when all of that was getting pushed. So that means the bad times were the result of those people. No, it means the bad times were the result of the people behind the curtain, the puppet master, using everyone else as a little puppet.
But
And
that's
that's the key, is to not fall for that.
and that's what makes this like this is fertile ground right now, and the time that we're in right now is the most exciting time for creators to take a risk right now on a thing that you think is really cool, that you need to take a risk on rebuilding culture, because that's what everybody in the indie circles, Comicsgate, indie movies, anybody right now who is trying their best to create something is creating culture. And if you're somebody that supports indie ventures, or somebody like a Brandon Sanderson who's kind of operating outside these more mainstream realms, you are a patron of these arts. At a certain point, there were the Impressionists, who the term impressionist was a derogatory term that was used to marginalize these groups of painters who were just trying to get out there and paint alla prima and paint light and paint in a method that was outside of the academic mainstream standard. And they stuck to their guns, and lo and behold, Impressionists became the standard painters. And we somebody like Monet, who is one of my favorite painters, has some of the highest selling auctioned paintings in the world right now. I think one just sold, one of his Lily pictures just sold for $72 million in Sotheby's. And the thing is that when you, and that's why I don't like to dwell too much on the mainstream. I look at the mainstream for its entertaining Schadenfreude, because I can point at it and make fun of it, and that's an entertainment for me. But in terms of the things that I'm really excited about, I'm excited about the creators right now on the ground level who are rebuilding culture. So yeah, but you got to take a risk.
Oh yeah, and I find a lot of people when they're starting off, especially, they really. I think it's wrong to go about it and go, well, if I can't be the best, then I shouldn't bother. Because
Oh
if you're
man,
just
yeah,
starting off, and I see this conversation happen a lot, and even just the subtext of it, where people go, why should I bother trying if I'm not going to be a success immediately? Why should I do this thing? Why should I tell this story if it seems like, maybe the story has been told before? Now, obviously, you shouldn't go in there and go, hey, I like Batman. I'm going to make a Batman book and
yeah,
call it, Catman. And he looks exactly like, Batman and does everything just like Batman. And he's, Wayne Bruce and, that kind of a thing. And you're ripping it off.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm not saying pursue that, but that's where the creative process comes in. So, we're all influenced, even Batman. Good grief. Batman greatly influenced by the pulps. Every single thing has been influenced by something else, either directly or indirectly. So for people to go out there and kind of be their own worst enemy when it comes to it and go, well, why should I even bother? Why should I try? Why should I start? If
Man,
every
on that,
single creative person that ever existed, or every single person that ever existed, had that mentality, why should I bother? Because if I can't be great at it immediately, then there's no point.
I mean,
Um,
I,
y-
I won't lie. Like with this book, I number one, like if I were to say that I hadn't felt that way before in my process of learning to draw comics, I mean that'd be a darn lie. I felt that before. I had to fight that. Um, the This book itself, this is the second iteration of this book. This isn't the first, this isn't the first 26 pages. This is like, um, I had the first iteration of this book. I drew 40 pages of this thing, and it was a completely different story. This is the little hand print out ash can I made for it. It was
oh,
originally
nice.
going to be black and white. It's same concept, same world, slightly different thing, but up, I got about 40 pages in illustrating it, and I took it to my wife, and I was like, "Hey, babe, would you, take a look at this and see what you think and read through it?" And she read through it, and she looked straight at my face, cold as steel, and she says, "It's too busy. There's too many panels. I don't know what's going on. Nothing's happening. It's boring." And I was just like, "Oh, you're right." And I was like, "You're right." Like, look at this. Like, look how many panels. Like, it's just like talking heads, medium shots. Nothing's dynamic. I mean, there were some good things in it, but
Well, there's no lettering on that, right? There's no lettering.
no, not on this one.
So
I showed her a lettered one, but but still, it was too busy.
I was going to say, though, that there's so much crammed in there. I don't even know where there'd be room to fit the lettering.
Yeah, when I did the lettering, I was like, well, I guess I'm cutting this foot off, and I'm sacrificing this illustration. So I showed it to her, and I was just like, okay, well, I can either quit and go to something else, which I didn't really want to do, and that made just the sheer thought of that made me feel sick. Or I can try again. And actually, Jason, that's where I brought up Jason Brubaker before, and this is a lesson I learned from Jason Brubaker, and actually changed the entire method by which I was creating my book, because what I was doing was with this original book, I had overwritten. I sat down and I typed out a script, and I typed all the different panels I was going to have, and I literally drew everything that I wrote that I was going to do. And as a result, I had an extremely dense, very busy, very boring book. And my wife was like, you like Jason Brubaker, and you can see, like, when you open up his book, I mean, he's looking at both pages, and he's opened up the whole illustration, and I was like, yeah, let me try that. So I changed gears, I changed methods, I changed materials, I changed a lot of stuff. I took another treatment of the book. I got rid of this entire I'm going to write the crap out of my book and illustrate it verbatim. I opened it up. Oh, yes,
Yeah, he
Remind.
did
Yes,
rerun. Yeah,
yes. But yeah, so I opened up both pages and I just decided I'm going to look at my composition as if the whole book is open to me, and and that opened up the panels, and I think people have been generally more positive toward the illustration style thereafter. But
yeah.
man, if I would have quit, or like
Well,
it
the
sucks.
thing is too
But
is that you never know. You never know what kind of fork in the road you're going to come across, and you're going to develop down a different path. So if you don't ever pursue your ideas, even if you think, man, I don't know about that idea, I don't think it's going to be the greatest or the most original, but if you never pursue it, especially when you're starting out, you never take those steps. So you never get that detour
yeah,
creatively that sends you down a different path, that gives you another detour that sends you down a different path, because that's what happens as you travel along and you do these things. You figure out all these, it's constant problem solving. So
yes,
if you never ever try to approach problem solving creatively, you're never going to get to anywhere. And there's so many people that I see themselves all the time where they're just kind of racking their brains about whether they should even get started. And it's like, just get started. It's like the blank page in front of you, whether
yep,
you're a writer or you're an artist, whatever it is. Just make something on there. Just type out, you just let yourself go. Stop trying to think about all the things that come after. Stop trying to think about the selling. Stop trying to think about who it's going to impress, who it's for, whatever it is. If you have an idea, just start writing something down. Just start sketching something out. Just start having fun with it. Don't be intimidated by that process. And so many people are so intimidated by that process. And
yeah.
it's it's
It's
sad to see.
it's tough because it really is like, and you mentioned like getting your headspace and like the business aspect, and like I remember when I first kind of started doing some of this stuff, I was daydreaming about like, oh, I'm gonna have like all these readers, and I'll have to have social media, and I got to start a website and do all this stuff,
They think
and
about everything except
everything else.
doing
Yeah, yeah,
the thing
except
they want to do.
yeah, and then another aspect you mentioned, like this fear to start, this fear of failure. I remember one of my high school art teachers said something really poignant to that fact, and it's like you shouldn't fear failure, especially with art, because you will fail. The thing is that you have to learn to fail faster, like just fail faster, like do it, make your stuff. Like I have an entire file of concept illustrations, which is nothing but me stumbling my way toward what some of these characters look like. And if you could just get that over with, get that process through, you're going to be, you're going to be okay. But
Yeah.
it's that first step, man. It can be intimidating. I get it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's why I, even when I used to teach drawing workshops at libraries for kids, I do the sketching part. We do sketches for like 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes, they do 3 different sketches in a timed manner with no erasers. And when I would say that part at the end, and I'm like, and there's no erasers on your pencils, I'd rip them right off. They'd look at me like, this guy's a
Yeah.
lunatic.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
help, help. And I tell them the reason why is because if I give you an eraser or there's an eraser on that pencil, you're going to be so concerned with making every line perfect. And they go, oh, okay. So afterwards, they're done with their sketching. They're getting used to just gesture drawing, essentially, and getting their ideas out and not caring about it and just being messy with it. And then I'm like, okay, now you can start working on your final thing based on the ideas you sketched out. And I would give them an eraser. And the tendency to go towards the eraser at first, I would see it. And I'm like, you notice what's happening? It's been 5 minutes. You keep erasing that. I'm
Yep.
like, I'm going to take that eraser away. I'm gonna like get back to doing your sketch, and you'll see the drawing's gonna come alive. And they would do it every time, and then the drawing would start to emerge because they're not there constantly overthinking every single step, and they're following more what their instinct is. And no matter what skill level you're at, and they varied because there was little kids and they're all different ages, and no matter what skill level, they adapted to just go with it. Just go with it. Be in the moment. Be present. Stop thinking about 10 other things that happened today, or the 10 other things you want to do later, or where you're going to take this drawing, or where, what is inspiring you, or whatever. Just be in the moment, be there with that, and get creative with it. And that's a lot of the time really what we need to do when we do anything like this, because otherwise you just kind of get caught up with overthinking the hell out of it. Overthink it later, edit later, revise later.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have something done though to revise.
Right. And honestly, it's like I can't. There are certain conditions that, like, first of all, with writing, like, the writing situation. When I'm writing, I'm sketching along with my words, but to say that I am writing is kind of a misnomer, because I don't feel like I'm writing it. Stories are like beaming into my head from somewhere, and I'll let the viewer decide where those things are coming from.
The ether.
The ether. But they're coming to me, and I'm just writing it down. The thing is that I cannot do that. Say, like, if I have music playing, even classical music, I can't listen. I got to be in silence if I'm going to write. Now, there are certain things that I can do where like watercolor painting, things like that, where it doesn't activate a certain kind of mind. It's more like a visual response, a visual and physical response. So like I can listen to some music or something in the background is fine. But like if I'm drawing or penciling, for instance, the drawing, man, I cannot watch videos. There's no YouTube going on. I can listen to music, but as long as it doesn't have words in it, because like you have to, it's the actual act of drawing or making art is an act of thought, and it's the same thing. I've told people it's like imagine trying to speak and eat at the same time. Like you can't, you'll choke to death. And that's what it's like. It's like when I'm trying to make art, I have to go blank, just quiet. So
Yeah, that's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people where it's all over the place. What gets them in the zone, what keeps them in the zone, what gets them out of the zone. So it's always interesting to me when people that need to be in complete silence, people that need to have something on, people that need to have something almost like fast-paced and loud, or they need to have people talking, or they need to have something that's just engaging them but it's in the background and it's quieter, or whatever it may be. But everybody seems to have a different thing of what helps them get into the creative flow. So it's really interesting whenever I come across people who talk about that, because I usually have some kind of, it's either something on in the background that's not new. So it'll be like a movie or a documentary or whatever that I've watched 100 times.
Yep.
Or it's music that's not relatively putting me in a certain state emotionally that's distracting. Mm-hmm. So it'll be something that's a bit softer, a bit quieter, a bit more mellow maybe, or something again that I've listened to a lot. Like when I've talked about it before, anybody that's ever reading King Cryptid, if you're imagining what I'm doing as I'm writing out the story, I have Dean Martin on every time.
Nice.
I don't know why.
Nice.
It's just it. People could probably guess. People could probably take 20 guesses and never come up with Pete's listening to that. So that's on all the time. But when I'm drawing or whatever else, I could have other things. So it's interesting when everyone's got something different. And I've talked to a lot of people too that they need silence because they're in the zone. They're concentrating on it. And it's always fascinating to me. Norin Rad says I always have the TV on in the background when I write. Yeah. There's a lot of
People can do it.
interesting things. Yeah.
I can't. It's difficult. Well, writing and drawing, because the writing part, if I'm hearing somebody else's words while I'm trying to write, it's it. I've literally been writing and then start to write what I'm hearing, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
with drawing, because because it's such a thought intensive process and it's not easy for me. It's drawing for me is more like an act of sheer will and cussedness than anything else. um, I have to I can't look at something, like I can't I like I could probably get, like you mentioned, like it would have to be something you've seen before, like a documentary, or like I've seen Lord of the Rings so many times that like I could I wouldn't have to look at it. But if it was something like this podcast, and it was fresh and I hadn't seen it before, I'll just be looking at the
Yeah,
TV.
there's no way. I'm too engaged when it's something new. For better or worse, depending on what it is. Either it's engrossing and I'm like, okay, my attention is going too much into that, or it's horrible and I'm like, I gotta find something else. Let me move around and find
Yeah,
something.
because
You know,
that's the other thing is like it's art sometimes. It's really fun. It's fun to have done, but it's like a marathon. Marathons are like fun to have run, but while you're doing it is rough.
oh yeah, yeah, it's a grueling process.
It's you're giving. I've heard some people liken making art to giving birth, and it's, obviously it's not that it's not that painful, but
I don't
it
know
is
what people
pretty.
are doing with that art. Oof.
But I'm saying, it's like that kind of like it's a difficult thing to do, and for me, my brain is constantly trying to get out of it. Like, what can I distract myself with?
Yeah, I think it's whatever allows you to. Because when you're creating, especially, you're using both, like it's an odd state. You're using both like the conscious and subconscious mind simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's weird when you really get in that state, and people call it like the flow state, that kind of a thing. When your conscious mind is almost able to tap into the subconscious mind and reach in there and pull a couple things out and keep you in that state, but then consciously you're able to manipulate them and create them. So everything's frequency. So when people are listening to certain things or not listening to certain things, whatever helps you to get into that state, I guess, is what you kind of lean into. I don't know what it is about Dean Martin's music that helps me to get into writing in general, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the frequency, the resonance, whatever it has to. It's got to be something like that. It's hitting my brain the right way. But then, like you said, there's other things that they hit you the wrong way, or sometimes any noise, any sound at all, and it gets you right out of it.
Yeah.
Always fascinated by that. Introspect M says, depends on what stage I'm at. I like background music or TV when I'm in the thick of it, but it can get in the way when trying to start something new or doing something I haven't before. I agree. Yeah. What Geeks Do Network says, old big band and swing is good to write to for me. Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah, yeah. I found myself listening to jazz a lot
Yeah.
recently.
Jazz has
And
just been proven even to increase and improve creativity. Something
oh,
about the frequency, the resonance, the pattern, all of that kind of stuff. It hits kind of the same notes as certain classical music.
no, well, that's good to know. I mean, I well, I have to listen to it more. I found that it's like I mentioned, like there's no words in it, so it's not something my brain is constantly trying to predict or hold on to. So yeah, I like that. I was trying to listen to like some lo-fi and Akira the Dawn, but it's and I like that stuff for other things, but it does make me concentrate on the actual music
Yeah, it almost
too
gets
much.
hypnotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you start getting into it's too much tapping into the subconscious mind, you know.
No, it's good for working out, but not for writing or creating.
Let's see. Ronan Dust says dubstep without words is that tempo that keeps me writing. That's interesting. See, everybody's got something interesting that speaks to them and helps them to get into that level, to that state. Shat says, listening to Art Nell when I paint lately. Interesting. I gotta ask people more of that question. Do you have anything on in the background when you work? Because everyone's got a different answer. What Geeks Do Network says, where can we find you, Ryan? I'll follow.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you can find me here on YouTube at Line Mill Comics. Just type in at Lion Mill Comics or Lion Mill Comics or even Lion Mill Cascadia. You'll find me on YouTube. And on Twitter, it's Lion Mill _studio. And those are the two places you can find me. Yeah, right there. Yeah, there I am.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Art Bell. All right. I was going to say, I don't know what the hell's what anymore. I know who Art Bell is. But I was going to say when Sean said Art Nell, I was like, I don't pay attention to pop music. So I was like, maybe that's some kind of
oh my gosh,
new musician. But Art Bell. Okay, yeah, coast to coast.
Yeah. I used to work as a security guard at a mall in the middle of the night. I had listened to Coast to Coast for a long time, ever since I was a kid. But I had a particularly good time because it was like I was by myself, nothing was happening. I was in just like a bunch of computer screens in front of me, making sure like the hobos didn't break into the mall, and I would just sit down, do little tiny paintings because I had my little art set, and listen to George Norrie or Art Bell, whoever was on at the time, and I remember that time very fondly.
Yeah, Art Bell, R.I.P. Yeah. Sean Art Nell is a K-pop sensation. Hey, man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to be like, hey, if it works for you, keep listening. You're doing good stuff. But Art Bell makes way more sense, and I know who that is. So, yeah, I can vibe with that. Man, oh, man. So, What Geeks Do Network already asked you the question that I usually ask before I wrap up about where to find you. Other than that, we are going to wrap up. Other than where to find you, then, what else do you want to direct people to? Do you have something that's currently out, something that's in the works?
Well, right now, actually, I just wanted to announce that I am going to be publishing with our friends at Broken Compass Entertainment. And so they've been retweeting my stuff. And when my book is ready, we'll be making some more announcements about that. I do a lot of YouTube shorts because it works really well for my for my life. I'm very busy teaching and doing stuff like that. So it's hard for me to sit down and make a real good video that I'm proud of. So the YouTube shorts are kind of like just my process videos, my hobbies. You get to see my really cute dog. And so that's a really good way to support me right now, is just help me build up my YouTube channel, help follow me on Twitter. Shout me out, and that would be an excellent help. And then keep an eye out for, I'm thinking probably we talked to maybe late spring, maybe start building up a mailing list or something. So
very nice. Yeah, I've got the link for Ryan's YouTube channel in the description of the show. Go subscribe to that. And also, I'm such a dope. I should have brought your King Cryptid piece that you had made and sent me. I should have had that around. It's over in the corner.
That was fun to draw,
I should have had that on the screen.
way.
You did a great job with that, and I was impressed and I was flattered, man. Thank you so much for sending that. It was great.
Well,
You've got a bunch of shorts on your YouTube channel if people do want to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the whole process. I got really. I was worried I was like annoying you with all the videos, but I kept trying different variations.
No, it's cool. I love seeing that.
But thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, man. But it's on Ryan's YouTube channel if you guys do want to see a bunch of those shorts, along with a lot of other great art and whatnot too. Yeah, there you go, Metatron. Thank you for putting that link in there. And appreciate you guys being here tonight. Means a lot. Sheldon wants to know what kind of dog.
She is a Vizsla Pitbull mix. and so she's like this little medium-sized 50-pound. She's got pit bull, and it's clear she's a pit bull, but she's got that like red copper coat and copper eyes, and she's just a beautiful and cute dog. So
Oh,
you'll see her. You'll flip around and you'll see her.
there you go. And thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. This is a great show, guys. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. So, everybody, again, I've got the description to Ryan's YouTube in, not the description. Jeez Louise. The link to Ryan's YouTube in the description of the show. Man, act like you've done 122 of these, Pete. Good.
Thank you so much, Pete, for having me on. I was very flattered.
No
you
problem.
Asked.
Thank you for being here, man. Great conversation tonight. I hope you have just a ton of success with Cascadia. Wish you all the best with it. I'm looking forward to seeing where you take that story and those characters. And so you said spring or so you're going to start getting a mailing list together?
I'm thinking so. Right now, I'm currently working on issue 2, writing it. Once the writing is done and the thumbnails are done, it's going to be a pretty. I'm going to pound out these pages because I found that the hardest part is the writing and the layouts.
Oh yeah, definitely. Man, oh man. Thank you again for your time. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys for your time as well. 2 things before we go. I just want to remind you guys, King Cryptid's got a full moon special tonight, that poster set. It's on both kingcryptid.com and alternacomics.com/kingcryptid, and also those beautiful 3D printed resin figures. This one's all gone. That's the glow-in-the-dark 5-inch that won't be made again. If you missed out, I'm sorry. The 5-inch gray, that's gone. Won't be made again. Again, if you missed out, I'm sorry. We got one left of the glow-in-the-dark 3-inch. That one won't be made again either. But this one will still remain in production. This is the 3-inch gray, and we got about 20 of these left. So if you guys did miss out, and this one's $12. So pick it up. It's a great looking figure. Ronin Dust right there printed these, and we're going to be doing a lot more of other characters in the future. And Nick Hunter did the 3D sculpt. Other than that, tomorrow is the last day to back Alterna's winter apparel and merch campaign. So make sure to get a limited edition premium blanket, hoodie, beanie, or mug, or all of them if you want. Some people have. Make sure to get those at alternacomics.com/winter. Again, tomorrow is the last day. We're only going to make a limited edition amount of extras based on the most popular items and sizes. So if you want to guarantee yours, make sure you get yours before, what is that, the 28th. Tomorrow, the last day to do it. Guys, thank you so much, everybody. Again, you guys are the best. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you guys being here. Ryan, all the best to you too, man. Really appreciate your time and your generous time tonight, because we went 20 minutes over what I thought we would be doing. It was a great conversation. Yeah, it did. We hit an hour, and I was like, what? How's it an hour?
Well,
so here we are at an hour 20. Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime. And when you got everything going with your book again, give me a tap on the shoulder. We'll get you back on the show.
Thank you.
Continue this conversation. No problem, man. Until then, until tomorrow, until the next time I see you, which probably will be tomorrow. I'll do something tomorrow during the day real quick if I can. If not, it is what it is. I've got fulfillment to do. But until the next time I see you, have a great night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys soon. Take it easy.
Bye.